when you're a kid, you just can't wait to go out and make your own decisions. But as an adult, you realize, man, you had it really good when your parents just kind of set up your day for you. I've started looking at my life that way. I have a father who will always tell me what to do, but I have to go ask him what he wants me to do first. And if I do that, like the stress that goes away, sometimes I forget. But more and more, it's, as I find that I'm turning to him and asking him what he would have me do, life just gets really smooth and really nice. I'm thrilled you're here with us on The Christian Clinician, where we join faith with evidence-based medicine to revitalize your health and renew your faith. Get ready for real and informative conversations with wellness experts and Christian scholars alike to gain a deeper understanding of our faith, explore our God-given purpose, and discover how the strength of our relationship with God can impact our health here on earth. Welcome to another episode of The Christian Clinician. I'm your host, Tanya Paynter, and I am here today with Kornelia Stephanie. Kornelia is a life and business coach, podcast host, founder of the KS Media Group. She is the author of Peace, The Flip Side to Anger, How I Used My Emotions to Heal My Life and My Body, and How You Can Too. Her life's work has been undoing all the old conditioning and old beliefs and healing her emotional core wounding. As a way shower and an ascension guide, her role is to demonstrate how it's done and share the experience along the way. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast, Cornelia. Welcome.
Thank you, Tanya. It's great to be here with you. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good, good. So, would you just share a little bit about what you do and kind of your story, how you got to where you are right now?
Wow. So it seems like it's so much this lifetime that I've been here and what I've overcome and the things that I've achieved and what I have accomplished. It feels like a lot. A lot of it is work that I've done on the inside of myself that
Hmm.
has made me feel whole, has made me feel complete, and has made me feel like I did what I came to do, to work on my soul growth, on my soul fulfillment. I came into this life as an empathic child, and I was born into a dysfunctional family, single mother family, alcoholic parents. And I was born and raised in Germany. And I came to this country when I was 13 years old, which was already very challenging to come to another country when you're in your teenage years, which was really, really difficult at the time. And what I do remember as a little girl, I already felt very burdened by taking on responsibilities as a child that were too much for me, that I felt as an empathic kid. I
Mm.
took on the emotions of my mother and the people around me, like whatever was going on, I took that on. And so I already felt that my emotional needs were set aside so that I can be a little grown adult
Mm.
and do the adult things. And, my mother was working 3 jobs back in the day. That was really challenging because she had to put food on the table. And I was, per se, the mother in the household. So, um, and that was very, very stressful and very difficult. So, fast forward to coming to America then from Germany, right? My mother married an American serviceman, and he was a disciplinarian because he was in the military for 30 years. So, going from not having any type of masculine
Mm.
structure and father energy at home to now having this disciplinarian was also very challenging, and being in a new country and the whole thing. So early on, I decided to run away from home.
Mm.
I know, right? Ran away from home and tried to, find my way in the world. And I, sure enough, became very successful early on. I got a great job. I started working my way up in the company, and I started achieving a lot of success. And then I also had a beautiful boyfriend, and one day, he brought drugs home, and next thing you know, I became addicted to crack cocaine,
Mm,
and now and now I'm an addict, and now I am destroying all the success that I had achieved in that
mm,
short amount of time. Uh, and I started doing that. And so basically, I, ended up taking drugs one time and became an addict. And
mm,
so that was really interesting. And then to try to um, get off drugs was also very challenging because I didn't want to at the
mm,
time. I didn't want to. So um, later on in my life did I learn and find out about myself that that I came in to heal suicidal ideation, that suicide had followed me in my shadows pretty much, for the first part of my life up until my mid-30s, and that occasionally then there were those times where I would be overwhelmed by emotion to want to commit suicide,
mm,
overwhelmed by it. And so when things really began to shift is really when I was looking for why am I here? I can't do this anymore. Because when you're taking drugs and you're a drug addict, basically you're numbing your feelings, you're numbing your pain, and
mhm,
you're numbing things. So you're certainly not feeling, you are avoiding all of that. And I felt that my body was like a pressure cooker, basically. As soon as you take the lid off, it's boiling with pain,
mm.
boiling with anger, boiling with emotion. And so I was looking for God in all the right places. I thought I would find God in church. I thought I would find God in certain religious denominations. And I was born and raised a Catholic. And then I ended up going to practice Jehovah's Witness.
Mm,
And then in all the places, I always felt that there was a lot of judgment,
mhm,
and I really it didn't resonate with me that um that was what God is.
yep,
So I had come to the place of that, okay, in order for me to find out, because even your question before we came live today was, how do I practice my faith and how do I have faith? And really, that was my question to God, is that I don't know if I can stay here and live here on this planet without you in
mm,
my life. I don't think that I can go on, because I'm looking for you all outside and in all the places, and I can never find you. And so, and it's certainly, I certainly wasn't talking like that, because I was in my living room having a nervous breakdown on the floor and basically surrendering my life
mm,
again, surrendering and really, pleading and begging a God to fill me and to come into my life and to show me, and that I will never ever doubt again if you let me feel you, if you
mm.
let me experience you. And so that was the beginning of my uh, journey with.
I have to know what did you experience when you prayed that? Did you feel him moving in you?
I felt the Holy Spirit.
Yeah?
Yeah, I felt the Holy Spirit.
Uh,
And how do you describe the Holy Spirit
mm.
other than, it's very difficult to describe.
If you haven't experienced it, it is very
It's
difficult
very
to
difficult.
describe.
Yeah. It's a very difficult, but truly it was so palpable for me
Mm,
that I didn't doubt it after that. I didn't doubt it. And it was, I want to say it was a 4 hour of complete surrendering, deep surrendering,
mm,
deep pleading and deep crying and deep desire that I want to feel you, let me feel you. I want to have you close to me. I want to know what it means to, be here. I need to feel you. It was basically that. And I really truly feel that there are many of us back at that time that were desiring the feeling paradigm of God source to come into our life. Because when you look at that, was like 30 something years ago, when we were still, we weren't practicing what we were feeling.
Mm.
We weren't even, because now today, when you're looking at, God, when I look at God today, God to me is, now we are one. There is no separation between us. It was always the belief that I had before that I was separate from God and that God is
Mm.
outside of me and that I have to look for you outside in the church or here. I have to look for
Mm-hmm.
you instead of looking within. And so that is what ended up happening. So the whole experience of the Holy Spirit coming into my life, and then me even saying, I I want to be healed from this pain. I want to be healed. And I'm putting everything I have in you, everything I have, I'm putting it in you, and please take it from me.
Mm.
And so I want to know what faith is. I want to know what it means to live in faith, but I can't know unless I fully give myself to you and until I get to experience it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's really pretty much what happened is I surrendered my life in full desire, in full pleading, in full uh heart's desire, in full wanting to know, wanting to feel. And after that took place, I went to sleep for like 2 days.
Mm.
And after that, I was being cleansed from a lot of things. Like a
Mm.
lot of things were taken from me. And it was really interesting that as the things were taken from me, I became homeless. And there were other things that were just, relationships ended, things,
Mm.
it was just a lot. Things were taken from me. And at the same time, that Holy Spirit, I had a knowing that I was being cleansed,
Mm-hmm.
all of the things, everything that was no longer right or in alignment with who I am now, was being removed. And because I was so raw and ripe in the process of I'm trusting, I'm in faith, and now I get to experience what this faith means. And so there was a calming at the same time, even at the time of being homeless and everything was being taken from me, a knowing that that I'm being held and that I'm going to be taken care of.
Was that a relief, or was it, I mean, I imagine there was a certain level of stress, but was it like I understand what's happening, I'm stressed because I need to find some place to live, but it just like an unburdening, or how did that feel?
Yeah, it did feel, I did have the stress, right? Of, oh yeah, I do need to find a place to live. Um, and at the same time, it was that feeling again of the Holy Spirit of trusting that I
Mm.
am taken care of and that it's going to be okay. Of literally like the faith was being practiced
Mm.
through that experience in the moment. Like, okay, yeah, now you've got this huge challenging situation. You thought before that you didn't have God. Now you have God. And so how are you going to act?
Yeah, now what?
But it was
It,
basic.
isn't that the feeling, like you can have these human emotions and you can feel the stress and you can feel the anxiety or you can feel the depression, but then when you have him and you pray for his peace, like there is another level to your feelings. And again, it's one of those things you can't describe it unless you've experienced it, where it's just this solid, like rock solid level of peace. And then above that, you have like this thin layer of anxiety, but you can feel the deep down roots and just like being in that is just so amazing and helps kind of pull you through and makes the anxiety and the depression, all the other terrible feelings, minor. And like you can just feel them being a temporary thing that will just kind of blow away. But that deep feeling is just rock solid.
Yeah. And that feeling was so rock solid that, many times, I thought of God as a feeling, like, God is in my feeling. It's one, and it's carrying me. And
Mm-hmm.
and then the miracles would show up,
Mm.
the angels would show up, and the situations would show up, and these things would happen. So, and it was just always like a complete, like, wow, and
Hmm.
wow, and wow, these kinds of things were happening.
The
And
coincidences, quote
yeah,
unquote, right? Yeah.
yeah. And the angels, like at first I got a temporary place in a hotel, and I'm living in a hotel. And now guess what? The person that is coming to clean my room, uh, you know, she's been cleaning the room or whatever for like the last week or 2 weeks and whatever. And then one day she said, "Hey, would are you looking for a room for rent?" And then next thing I'm living at her house for a year.
Mm,
Things
how
like
amazing.
these type of things, and just really trusting God. And that during that time, prior to me surrendering my life, like this was really wanting to be healed from suicide, never wanting to be plagued with the thoughts of suicide again,
Mm,
or the emotion even, because what I discovered is that we have so much pain that what when people commit suicide, they really don't want to kill themselves.
mm-hmm.
That's not what it is. When people, um, they want to kill the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I had so much pain because I was already numbing it up and numbing it up and numbing it up, that now I know, and you know this too with your work, and that is, in order to heal, we have to feel.
Mm-hmm.
The only way out is through. And we have to sit with the pain, and we have to sit with the consciousness, and we have to sit with the feelings. But at that time, I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
didn't know that I had to feel all of this, that I had to feel all these emotions. That was a lot to deal with at the time. So I understand, I have compassion for the people that have been numbing, whether
Mm,
it is with whatever drug of choice they use, that they end up numbing for a long time. And then all of a sudden now there's all this emotion and
yeah.
energy that they have to sit with and deal and feel. I call it now feel to heal, feel to heal.
Mm,
And this is the reason why I ended up writing my book, because, well, that's not the reason, but this is part of my work. It has been to heal my body, heal my life. And I truly feel that I have accomplished that from a person that had self-hatred,
mm,
suicidal ideation, core wounding of, the inner child that was completely malnourished, not good enough, not worthy, feeling abandoned, betrayed, feeling so much shame, not feeling like I fit into the world. And when I realized that I was never meant to fit in, I was meant to co-create the new.
mm,
But I didn't know that. And thank God the angels were working overtime many, many times to stop me and prevent me from actually succeeding at causing harm to myself. So that's, so over having overcome these things, that's why I feel like completion, soul completion. And I feel like now I get to now be in a place of really shining my light and shining God's light, and giving my resources that I have um, realized,
mm.
because we all have it. That's
Yeah.
that's the other thing. We all have it, right?
Yep.
And so how do I express myself? How do I support others now? And so what I do now and what I've been doing is I've been podcasting for years, since 2017, but I originally started in 2012. And, I became my own empowerment coach, and started, a coaching practice to where I'm helping myself and also helping others heal their life and business coaching. And then in 2013, I wrote my book, and really, for uh Peace, the Flip Side to Anger. And originally the book was called Peace is an Inside Job, because it begins
Mm,
with each and every person, each and every one of us. It
mhm.
begins with each and every one of us, that we are the ones that can bring peace into the world through our kindness, through our actions, through our relationships, through how we co-create the world. We are the ones. But first, we have to take care of the house within.
Yeah, blessed are the peacemakers.
And so
Hmm.
that's my work, a peacemaker.
Yeah.
So peacemaking had to start first within me. And can
Hmm.
you imagine an angry little girl, an angry little woman, an angry woman that hated herself at the core,
Mm,
to a place of self-love and loving yourself so deeply that then you take that self and you bring that self with how you relate to the world, to the
hmm.
point where the relationship that you have with yourself and your intimacy with God, source, the universe, is the most important relationship you have. And then you bring that relationship to everything you relate with.
Hmm. Yeah, I never understood I never really understood how God sees us. And it hasn't actually been until just fairly recently where I started understanding like he doesn't see all of the sin that we carry around and the bad choices and the things that have happened to us and the things that we've done. He sees who he made. He sees the part that's connected to him, like the true me. And once you get past all the junk that you look at and you think is you, and you kind of get rid of all that and you really see what he sees, like, wow, the amount of love that you can have for yourself. And I'm still learning that lesson, right? I think that's probably an ongoing thing. But it's so transforming to think about, like, anytime I focus in on I'm a terrible person because, or oh, I can't believe I did that, I'm so awful. No, like that's not what he focuses on. How does he value me? Like what is he seeing right now? And when I start to reframe those thoughts and think about how he's seeing me in the moment, like it's easier to forget about the bad things that you did, the bad choices you make, and say, all right, well, I'm going to learn from that. I'm not going to do that again. Of course, we tend to sometimes do them again, right? But just kind of coming back to seeing how or thinking about how God sees you. And somebody that I was talking with, James Early, he did a great analogy and was talking about how we see the mud that is covering us. Like if you have a dirty child that goes and rolls in the mud, you know that you're not going to throw the child away. The child isn't unloved or unlovable because it's messy. You just go spray him off and then you give your clean child a big hug. And that's what God sees. Like he takes all of the mud off of us and he just sees us for us and it just takes joy in us. And I think that's just really important to remember. If we view our eyes through God and through God's eyes and how he sees us, it becomes so much easier to love ourselves.
Right. And if you, look at yourself the way that God is looking at you, look through those eyes, and
Mm-hmm.
look at other people through those,
Yes.
you
Yep.
know,
You can't look at
that
the mud of other people either.
no, that's
Yep.
that's the thing. I remember when I think it was in 2018, I was going on a news channel. I was flying to California and I was doing I think it had something to do with my book tour and a course I was promoting, and I was on the news. And so I had a segment, and there I had like 7 minutes to talk about my course and what it is that I'm doing. And I was talking about how uh how important it is to release judgment of yourself, like how important it is, and how many thoughts that we think every day. We think between 70 and 80,000 thoughts a day, and that they're repetitive, and tomorrow we're going to be thinking those same thoughts again. And most of those thoughts are negative, and how important it is to make yourself aware of that and consciously override that and refuse. So one of my things that I did at the time is I set this boundary, because I realized that I was still judging myself, and I wanted no judgment against self, none. So in the same way that if I was to have a relationship with a person, and if they were going to outright come to me and judge me out loud, I would be putting my hand up in the same way, and I would be putting a boundary up, and I would say, please don't talk to me like that.
Mm.
So what I discovered with the self-talk that happens with that negative self-talk, that's what I was doing in judging myself. And so then I had to put up a boundary within myself and say, put my hand up, line in the sand, and you are now not allowed to judge yourself. So the intention was, when I went on the news, to I told God, I said, I'm going to shine the brightest light. I'm going to shine the brightest light. I'm going to be the best. And I'm just going to, because the mind wants to go, oh my God, what are you going to do? You're going to try to control it. And you're like, oh my God, what if you're not, what if you make a mistake, and whatever else, right? All the things. And
Mm-hmm.
so I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to just do the best I can. I'm going to do the best job, and I'm going to do the best. So I did that. And when I was done, after I went back to my hotel room, then when I got the footage back, before I watched the footage, I was in my realization and knowing now, watch how the mind will want to go and say, look at how you're sitting,
Mm-hmm.
look at how you're talking, and look at what you said. And so I got myself beforehand and said, you will not, because what you will do instead is you will right away scratch that out, and you did the best. You did the absolute best. And it's hard to do. But
Mm-hmm.
listen, I'm telling you that if a person like myself, who had self-hatred at the core, and who
Yeah.
was suicidal and went through the things that I've gone through, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yep.
Right?
Philippians 4 is one of my favorite chapters in the New Testament. Just focus on what is good and pure and lovely. Like, he gives us instructions. You don't focus on the negative. If you make a mistake, you learn from it, but you don't dwell on it, right? You acknowledge it, you ask forgiveness, you move past it. And then you focus on the good, the lovely, the faithful, all of those things. And it's true. Like, if we change our thoughts, and there's actually research behind this, right? The positive thinkers have better health outcomes, are more successful in life. Like, just down the line, there's 4 or 5 different points that people who positively think about everything, not just themselves, but about other people, about their situations, even about bad things that happen in their life. And our frame of mind it's ultimately important in how we are living our lives and how we are feeling about the lives that we're living.
This is so important what you just said, positive thinkers. When we think of visionaries, we never think of visionaries as negative people.
Right.
So, I consider myself a visionary. I consider myself paving a path of the new human, the new ways, our true ways on how to relate, to be with loving kindness. In the first, it was God was absent in life and in the mind and in the body. And then came the realization that God has always been there, and that God isn't absent, and God is there, and this is God's house. So this house that I'm living here, this body is the house I live in, and the house of the earth that is also a house. These are all ways. And we had to bring God back with our desire and our will to do the right thing, and to practice loving kindness, and to bring God back onto the planet, because that is what we've haven't done.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's faithful in giving us that free will. He's not going to force himself on anybody. So we all get the choice of whether or not we accept him in, or we push him away.
In
Yeah. Yes.
In,
Absolutely in. Everybody in. So,
in.
so what are some of the first steps that people can do to kind of work on this? I mean, this is what you're talking about is years of work, right? Years of self work. I mean, it's an ongoing process for all of us, right? How does somebody even get started in this?
Uh, what, in loving the self?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
in
starting
loving
to
the
work
self. I
through.
mean,
Yeah.
it took me, I remember when I first started, uh, to even say the words, I love you. I love you so much. I
Mm.
love you so much. I love you so much. You're so beautiful. You're so amazing. This is a good place to start. I mean, you've heard many times people say, look in the mirror and say, I love you to yourself. But I remember when I first started, I couldn't say the words to myself.
Mm.
Um, I couldn't get them out of my throat. I started crying. And it took me a long time to really be able to own it, to really be able to own it. And so,
Did you
uh,
just keep repeating, like just keep trying, and then eventually they
yeah,
came out? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would just keep trying until the crying stopped
Mm.
and till, and it became a practice, really. It was like basically, okay, you're starting to fall in love with yourself. You didn't love yourself before, and now you're going to have a relationship with yourself where you're going to love yourself and you're going to make choices that reflect that self-love.
Mm.
So what are the things that are important to you? What's important to you? So a good way to start is what's important to you. What do you need?
Mm.
Do you need that asking that question, what do you need, is still one of my stellar pillar statements that I ask myself regularly to this day. What do you need? Because we've got so much change out there in the world with just about every single thing, every single system is changing. Everything is changing. There's so much that what can we do to create a loving, nurturing environment for ourselves? And if we don't know what it is that we need, or if you can't articulate to yourself what you need, then how can you make sure you get it?
Yeah, and we were talking about this before we started recording is, sometimes the things that we think we want aren't really the things that we want, right? And so sometimes you have to do some soul searching to figure out what is it that I really want? I think I want this, but after a while of just constantly praying on it and thinking about it, you realize that's really not what I want. That's what I thought I wanted. That's what the world tells me I want, but that's not truly
Yeah.
what I want.
Yeah. I really want a simple life. For me, I want a simple life. I want, connection, human connections. I want good relationships. I want my
Mm.
business to thrive. I want to be able to creatively express myself in ways that reflect my true authentic self. And all those things, as you said already, we already are doing.
Yeah.
And so I want it to be even simpler than it is. So what I'm doing now is I'm clearing things out, like letting things go. Whatever else needs to be cleared out. What is heavy and burdening me? What's taking up my time? Where do I need to say no? Where do I need to, no, I don't want to do this. No, I'd rather sleep in this morning, or no, I'd
Mm.
rather do this, or no, I'd rather have quiet time, or no, I'd rather have journaling time. I really totally love when I have that and create that for myself, because it's just a really nurturing place to be.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that as a society, we think that we have to, in order to be successful or to have like a good day, we have to be busy and fill it with things all the time. And sometimes the best way you can spend your day is going for a 2-hour walk and then taking a nap afterwards, right? Or going out and reading in the sun for an hour. And I remember when I first started that self-care, because that's what I needed. Like I need that personal refresh time during my workday. And there was a period where God made me ask permission to do anything, like what clothes I would wear, what I would eat for lunch. I had to go to him in prayer, and he would give me minute by minute instructions of what I was allowed to do. And half the time I was like, okay, God, can I work on this email right now? No, you need to go outside with a book and some food and sit in the sun. I was like, what? That's not on my to-do list. What are you talking about? And then I would sit there the whole hour and part of me would be stressing about it because it's like, I have things to do. This is wasting my time. And I came to truly understand, like he was teaching me how important it is to care for myself. And I don't have to be busy every single minute of the day. I need that relaxation time. Because what ended up happening is that after I stopped working 12 hours straight, I got so much more done in the 4 hours of committed time than I did in the 12 hours of doing all the things. And it just was an amazing lesson. And finally, he's let me go. I can make some of my own decisions now. But, sometimes those decisions are I'm going to go sit out in the sun and read for an hour because that's what I need right now.
What I really love about what you said is, you were taking it straight to God. You were taking it straight to the source. You didn't take it anywhere else. You wanted it from God's ears, from God's heart. You wanted it from God's lips. You wanted it. That's where you took it, and that's your authority. That's the level of your authority where it's going to come from. That's the house. That's the foundation. That is where everything is built, and that is where everything will thrive because of it, because it is God's house. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful way to look at that. And so yeah.
Yeah, I find that, when you're a kid, you just can't wait to go out and make your own decisions. But as an adult, you realize, man, you had it really good when your parents just kind of set up your day for you. I've started looking at my life that way. I have a father who will always tell me what to do, but I have to go ask him what he wants me to do first. And if I do that, like the stress that goes away, sometimes I forget. But more and more, it's, as I find that I'm turning to him and asking him what he would have me do, life just gets really smooth and really nice. And yeah, it's definitely hard to let go of that as an adult to turn back to an authority figure and ask permission. But wow, it's so less stressful. His yoke is easy and his burden is light. I mean, he really does. He tells you to go take hour lunches in the sun. Like it's
That's
not a bad way to live.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. I love when people are in their devotion, dedicated to God, dedicated to their passion, what they're passionate about. That's the kind of world we want to build.
Yeah.
That's the kind of world we want to live in. Really, one of my values, what's really important to me is that I live close to my ideals, like what's
Mm.
important to me. What are my ideals and what's my ideal day? Like what is my ideal day? And my ideal day is being in my routine and being in my, flow.
Hmm.
And that's part of it. And so I don't want to be rushing and running around like a crazy woman. So
That's such a good reminder for us to do that. And what's interesting though is I feel like sometimes we value something, but really like in our soul, that's not what we're valuing. Like that's what our mind is telling us is important,
totally.
but it's not necessarily in alignment with what our heart feels is important. And I learned that lesson too. I remember specifically, I was praying in the shower and I was just having a bad day and I was saying, why are you making things so difficult for me, God? Like what is going on? And he's like, what is it that you don't have that you want? And I said, well, I want my business to do better. He's like, is that really what you want? I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I want to have a successful business. And he asked again, is that really what you want? And I paused and I was like, is that really what I want?
Mhm.
And then I'm like, well, what I really want is to be able to be at home and be with my kids and like have a purpose outside of like within the family, but then also having an impact in the world too. And he's like, isn't that what you're doing? And I was like,
Uh,
oh. And that
yeah.
was like a huge revelation for me because it was like everything I was pursuing was what I felt like I was supposed to be pursuing to be a successful person, but it wasn't really what my heart wanted. And he was giving me what my heart wanted, even though my brain was telling me it wasn't what I want. You know what I mean? We're confusing people, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think
Even
this
to
is a
ourselves.
great conversation that you had, with God, is that you asked the question because it's the mind, like we think even that, like what is it that we want with our business? We want to be successful. Well, define success. Bring it down to what is really important to you
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah. And that's I just did a biblical based personality test based off of the gifts that are outlined
in the Bible and found out that one of my big downfalls of the particular gift I was given, which is as a teacher. So apparently that's my special gift. And I can learn how to maximize that within the talent that he's given. But one of the biggest downfalls of the teacher personality is that they are a workaholic and they can't find personal life, work balance. And I was like, oh, that is so me. Like I swing to extremes. So I really need to be cognizant of that and build in those personal times where it's like I'm intentional and because it doesn't come naturally to me, right? Like I dive into the work and that's what I love to do. And so I do that. And it just really kind of opened my eyes to the fact that like I need to structure my day um, as that personality, and part of that structure needs to be the personal stuff that is not something I ever build in because you build in business time, like right, you work time, you don't build in family time. So anyway.
And I think it's interesting, that you mentioned the word work-life balance. And just even from the short amount of time that we have been talking, I think I mentioned that word 3 or 4 times: balance, bringing in balance, bringing in the balance. The more the world speeds up, the more, we slow down. The louder it gets, the quieter we get. It's like that.
Absolutely. Well, Cornelia, this has been an amazing conversation. Where can people find you and your book?
So they can go to Amazon at,
Okay.
they can just go to Amazon. Peace, the flip side to anger: how I use my emotions to heal my life and my body, and how you can too. There's that. In the book, actually, there's a 21-day peace practice in the book. It takes you every day, offering you an opportunity to really look at your emotional triggers, and when you get triggered, and how do you express your emotion? Do you hold it in? Do you how do you project it out? Just really getting you to be conscious of your emotional
Mm.
expression, right? Which is really important. And so there's the 21-day peace practice in there, and people can find me at corneliastephanie.com. You can find me at Transformation Talk Radio. There's that. And yeah, on YouTube as well. So
We will have links to all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on, Cornelia. It's been such a pleasure getting to talk to you, and I can't wait for our next episode together.
sounds good, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please subscribe for more topics like this, where we focus on bringing our faith and health together for a whole you. If you have questions around your health or your faith, including doubts and struggles with what you've been taught about God, we'd love to have you send us an email at support@psalmmedical.com.